Great. So like I said before, um, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit stressed out. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm stressed out is just sit back and relax. And that's kind of where this idea came from, is my love of relaxing. So the idea is the Kappa anchor. So what's the problem? What is this? Um, the problem is when you go out into your pool and you're trying to relax, you get the inflatable mattress out. What happens? Every minute or two, you bump your head on the side of the pool. You have to kind of like push yourself off. Then another minute or two goes by and you hit your head on the other side. You can't really relax, at least not that long, or you just have to commit to being on the edge of the pool. If you're out on a lake or a river, you're trying to relax, your number one fear is actually going out too far into the lake or the river. So number one fear is to keep you from in that relaxed state. So the solution to this problem came from the idea that I don't want to have to worry about that. So the idea is creating an anchor for the individual float mattress for pools, rivers, lakes. It's going to be a plastic ball that's going to act as a weight or an anchor, and it's actually going to attach to the inflation nozzle of that inflatable mattress. So as you see on the screen, this device does exist only for extremely large mats for lakes and for entertainment purposes, but not for the individual size. So for the individual size, we also want to have a plastic lock mechanism that you can adjust that string length. We want it to be around 8 to 10 8 to 10 feet, depending on the size of the pool or the river, and depending on cost. And the number one risk we have with this is someone getting caught in the rope. It's a huge concern that we have. We don't want anything bad happening on that end. So there's actually a solution to this for inflatable rafts attached to large ships and boats for life raft. It's called a painter. I didn't know this. I had my engineer tell me that this exists. So we're going to throw it on there, keep it plastic, maybe a couple pounds of weight. We'll pop it off in case anything terrible happens. So the potential market for this, this product doesn't, like I said before, this product doesn't really exist anywhere. Not that I've found, because I've looked and I wanted it. For the USA, there's about 10.4 million pools. I'm just going to take off 20% of those pools are not actively used for whatever reason. Either the home's not occupied or it's just a mess, whatever. And then I'm going to assume about 40 to 60% of people who own pools have inflatable mattresses that they would like to use and are also fit and want to buy this product. So that's about 3 to 5 million customers just for pools, for lakes and rivers. Assume that you can be in an area where this is something that you can do. People do this on lakes and rivers, but with larger sizes. So we're going to only use a 1.5 multiple from the pools, and we're going to assume a lot less potential customers, so about 15%. That gives us around 2 to 3 million customers from that area. We're also going to assume a $15 price on this. So the estimated customer base is going to be around 5 to 8 million, and the total market valuation for this is 75 to 120 million. That is everything good and no competitors in this space. Prime target for that. So the team that kind of, I guess, birthed this idea was myself. My name is Mitchell. I am a senior consultant at an investment firm right now. I spent the last 2 years with three revenue companies, working alongside angel and private equity investors, mostly in intern analyst to river guide positions. I brought on Matt. Matt's a good friend of mine. Matt is what we like to call a hobbyist. He's a tinkerer. He did the initial product design for this product for free because he spends his Friday and Saturday nights 3D printing car parts. And that's what he likes to do for fun. He's also professionally been a water engineer at local breweries for about 6 years. I thought he was the perfect fit to take this project on. And then another friend of ours, uncle Mark, Mark has been a patent attorney for 35 years. He was a named partner at his firm, and he said he would help us out for the 1% advisory. So that's going to be fun. So currently the cap table is going to be 94%. To me, I'm going to give Matt said he would do it for free. I'm going to give him 5%, and then Mark's going to take the 1% advisory. The timeline that we really want for this is to have the first design finished sent to the patent to get it patented by April 2021. We're going to assume 6 to 9 months for that process to complete. If we do get it completed, if we're thinking about 3 times to get it through around February 2022. If this does look like it's going to go, we're going to start our marketing campaign and start taking pre-sales. And hopefully that is our target. Now, the ultimate goal of this is we're going to have some inventory problems. I'll get to that later. Just from the ask amount, this is just in the idea stage. The idea is birth again from the product. I just want to lay back and not really do anything, which is why this is almost entirely, I want this business to go into licensing. And hopefully we can get that licensing deal by November 2022. I really want this just to be a proof of concept, to be able to ship out and have passive income. So the ask is $60,000. That's 40% of the equity is going to come from my share and a board seat. I don't want to take too much out of the business early, but so at 100,000 in revenue, 10% royalty from gross profit until you recuperate your $60,000, and then 5% royalty on net sales, just to get some money churning back your way. Again, the ultimate goal is licensing, and the deal reflects that. 50% of the licensing is going back to our investor, hopefully to you, until you recuperated. Then it's going to drop down to 20% licensing and 30% equity. So hopefully this deal is really incentivizing anyone who can really push the goal of getting into licensing, getting that passive income. So my idea of a perfect investor for this product is someone with experience in design engineering, the patent process, and licensing agreement. We have people, the team is experienced in all 3 of these parts. Having an investor that matches all of these needs is something, is the ideal situation. So we can bounce ideas off of. There is an opportunity for more investment down the line if we don't go the licensing route. That is an option available to you. But for right now, I think this is the target, and this is the investor that we are looking for. And so that 60,000 is going to go for year 1. 5,000 is product design. Matt said he would do it for free. I'm not going to let him do that. So I want to pay him $5,000 to get this done through the patent process. I estimate the patent fees at around 15,000. That might be a tad high, but that's the number that I got, and we can work around that. The marketing budget for year 1, I want 5,000. It's not a lot going to happen year 1. I just want to do maybe some quick A/B testing on the name of a product if we want to change anything like that. Inventory, I really want this small year 1. I just want a POC. I want to fix anything that comes up along the way if we have to change branding or anything like that. Year 2, we're going to step up the marketing budget to 20,000 and an inventory to 13,000. Now the inventory, again, is going to be a huge bottleneck. That 2,000 13,000 is going to be a few hundred to a few thousand units. Again, this just represents the push into a proof of concept into licensing. There is an option to bring on another investor down the road who can handle some inventory fees if that doesn't happen. And the reason why I don't want to ask for more money right now is because the amount of units that we're pushing through, I imagine our fees are going to be a little higher in the landed costs, around $7 to $8. And around $2 to $3 for the manufacturing, and shipping is going to be the majority of it, around $5. These are estimates that I've gotten from professionals in this space. I can get more in detail about these numbers if we really push it, but I'm confident using these estimates for now. Retail price of this product is, I want around $9.99 to $16.99, depending on the landed cost, if we have to move that a little bit. I imagine that customers who have an inflatable pool and who want to be able to relax more often, I don't imagine that price target is going to scare them away too much. So I'm confident with that number. So to get back to you, with no licensing agreement, if we keep our profit per unit between $3 to $6, it will take around 200,000 to 100,000 units sold for you to recuperate your initial investment. And that is, again, that's after the 100,000 in revenue to get us off the ground. I don't want to take money out right at the start. Again, I want to re-emphasize that I want this to be passive money in the bank every month and having to sit back and relax and enjoy the pool.
All right.
So does anyone have any questions?
Good job, Mitch. I'll turn it to Danny. Questions?
First off, I'm gonna start with a compliment. I love the data. I love the numbers. Um, what I'm One of the first questions I had was, have you looked at um, the sailing industry? And I say this because both Ethan and I sail, and there are already I mean, they're better for rivers and lakes than pools, but there's already very small anchors out there. So is that something you can leverage?
So the anchors that I've looked into, the smallest anchor that I can find was 5 to 7 pounds, and those are used for mats that fit 3 to 5 people. I really haven't found one that's basically just bare plastic that you can break down to like the individual small size that I'm targeting. So yes, I see those, but they are also like metal constructs and built for sand. They have like the prawns in them to catch rocks. Not necessarily great for for pools. So I did see that, and I think it's relevant, and it's definitely something I do have friends that sail. We can ask about that.
I was more thinking about in terms of seeing if there was anything you can leverage from a manufacturing or engineering aspect in terms of the dynamics of why you have an anchor shaped like that. Because my next question is have you done any work to think about how will this perform on a river versus in a pool? Is it going to be stable, or on a lake that's got waves? Is this going to be stable? Am I going to be safe? That's kind of where my brain started going when I saw this.
That's a great question, and it's definitely one of my concerns as well. There are options if it doesn't work out in rivers and lakes with rocky bottoms or the current's too strong. There are options to get heavier anchors. That's a separate product that we would have to create, and I really want to come back and emphasize that that's from the numbers that I looked at. That's a smaller part of the business. We can definitely get into that later, but if we have to cancel it out entirely, would be something that I would be comfortable with just to get it off the ground.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does for now.
Thank you.
Peter.
Do you have any prototypes that you've made?
We have one prototype, and it's sitting waiting for to be created, and some additional cash to come in from our work to get it started and get it tested out.
And have you explored manufacturing partners? Would this be made here? Would it be made in Vietnam? Would it be made in China? What are you looking at for manufacturing partners?
So the cheapest manufacturing that I've asked around for, so I haven't called anyone for this. The cheapest partners would obviously be in the Asian market, but shipping fees, I imagine, would be considerable getting it over here, especially with such small units. If we can explore US partners, I would imagine that'd be closer, but I haven't gone into extreme detail on pricing of that. Like I said, the estimates of $2 to $3 were pulled from industry professionals that gave me that number.
Is there any existing competition in this market?
I have not found any existing competition for the individual mattress size. If you go to bigger sizes, like 3 to 4 person, 5 person mats, there's a product. Actually, I stole their design or their.
Well, I wouldn't mention that in a pitch.
Yeah, yeah.
I use that for as an example. Yeah.
Did you kill your slides on purpose, by the way?
Yeah, sorry,
No,
it
that's
it
fine.
ended on me.
We can just talk. So, from a question viewpoint, I think my question would be, where have you talked to real potential customers, or how have you done that?
The
It's
only
my
customers that
favorite
I've
question.
talked,
What's that?
yeah, the customers that I've talked to are friends and family. But of course, they were 90 to 100% hit rate saying that they would buy it. That's why I kind of did some estimations, and 60% of customers who are in this market would be a potential customer. So that's just a rough estimation.
So, just for everybody out there,
Never.
market research is a huge part of a credible pitch. Testing, people in chat have said run ads on Facebook and see how many people click add to cart or even click through. Go to a pool store, ask people about it. There's a few ways. Go to the beach. And I realize that's a pain in the butt, but you learn so much from real customers. This is like the Amazon lesson, among many others. Like Amazon is not unique there. Is just customer feedback and working backwards from the real customer is so amazing, and you learn so much. And so I would always advise that. And I noticed, you.
If I may add on to that,
Yeah, please.
just quickly there, I Facetus in chat hit on one of the most popular strategies in this space, especially with consumer products, is that you take $100, you throw it on Facebook ads, you direct it to that ad to a website with a login with some minor markets, and then you understand if there is actual interest in purchasing the product. It is a very quick and simple way of really understanding if there's a need in the market.
And if you've got a friend with a 3D printer, you can make prototypes. 3D printing's not hard these days.
Sorry to interrupt, Ethan. I just wanted to really
that's
circle
cool.
in on that.
So my one question was about have you talked to anyone? My other question, I guess, is leading in the advice. You want relatively little money. You have something you want to manufacture. That's like the classic recipe for crowdfunding. Have you considered crowdfunding?
Have not considered crowdfunding. The concern that was brought up when I was talking about this with other people was, because this doesn't exist, it's one of two options. One, there's no market for it, and you guys have addressed that. And two, it hasn't been thought of yet. And so the idea of putting it out and doing market research was an idea that we thought of and just decided against.
Yeah. So
and that addresses your concern, and that might be naive on our part, but that was something that we have discussed.
Yeah. Well, when we get to advice, people want to talk about the 40% equity, and Peter, you called it out. When we get to advice, maybe you take that one. What I would say from advice here is, patents or no patents, you have 0% chance, in my opinion, of preventing knockoffs. It just enforcing, that's my opinion. So I'm trudging into advice at some point, but if this were to catch on, you're going to have clones. And number one, people have said it's going to be hard to patent the idea of anchoring. And number two, there's lots of ways to do it. That said, for all the people who wonder if it's needed, because that's been a question in chat, and I am rolling over into advice here. First, there are people who want this. Like, I was not kidding. You can look at the chat later. I immediately reached out to one of our moderators, 40 Pink Dragons, because I knew she would want it right away. Like, you've hit on a real problem. So then the question is, it's not hard to get the idea that you should anchor a pool float to the side or to the bottom. Why has no one done it? And the fundamental question is, it's not that no one's thought of it. You've pointed out that people have thought of it for larger rafts. They've thought of it for sailboats. Why does no one do it for a pool float? And that's the real question you're trying to solve. Because if you can solve the question, why haven't people done this fairly obvious thing. Why are they always sitting with a drink in one hand and their hand outstretched holding onto the edge of the pool? Why are they doing that when there's options? And I could speculate a bunch of reasons, but I think you need to figure out those reasons, because if you can figure out that, you can build a product you can sell, and you might also have more protectable IP. And so I would go really hard into why doesn't this already exist? And you know, there are different people speculating different things in chat. Maybe they're saying drowning risk. I'm not sure I buy that. But maybe like consumer safety, you don't address that in your pitch. So yeah. So anyway, my advice there is go figure out why people haven't done it. Because I think the hardest thing, there's a lot of things that get talked about that you could tell obviously you want, but getting enough people to buy them is tricky. And I'll give you an example. A friend of mine and I, we ski a lot. Everybody who follows the channel knows I ski. We talk about this product we call Ski Butt. And the problem is ski chairs are covered in snow or covered in rain, and they're cold and wet. And you really want something to insulate your butt and keep it dry, because even good ski pants get wet over time. And we've talked about different ways to build a butt protector. And yet it doesn't, it's an obvious idea. Everyone has a wet butt in the chair. And I have actually seen a few people with coats or something behind them, with like extended coats, but no one has built this. And 40 Pink Dragons say, don't give away our idea. It's okay. Because no one is actually like, the effort is in trying to figure out how to build it and get people to buy it, be aware of it. And you're going to have that problem of, even if you invent something that's safe, how do you get people to be aware that as opposed to getting the cheapest possible pool floaty for $3.99 or $4.99 or $8.99 or $12.99, they should pay $4 more or $12 more to get your anchor. And those are some of the challenges. And that's the same problem we would have with our idea that we may sometimes pursue. And you see right here, well, you'll see in chat later, people are saying they would buy Ski Butt if they're skiers. And it's just a question of like how to make them aware of it, because it's a problem everyone can see. So I'll stop at that point. Danny, Peter, advice for Mitch? Feedback on the presentation?
I'll be honest, I loved the idea because I think it's creative, and it's one of them. It's really out there from an idea, which for me is always good, because you're looking at the problem statement differently. To Ethan's point, it's like, go validate why somebody else hasn't done it before. But I would also be very open to trying different structures, right? Thinking about, is the triangle, I realized why you were trying to do the triangle is for stability, but that leads to all the other issues. What I would give from a feedback perspective is, you were so focused on countering arguments, you opened yourself up to can of worm after can of worm after can of worm. And stick to what is best about your product all the way through, and then let them come up with the questions at the end. And other than that, I similar to what Peter said about one of the other presentations, I thought your organization was good. I liked that you're already thinking through the financials. I like that you're already thinking through what does manufacturing costs look like. Couple of little, and then one last note about, you were making a lot of references to, I brought my friend in. My friend didn't want to get paid, but I'm paying him anyway. That's undercutting your argument.
Yep.
Okay.
You're actually devaluating the expertise you brought him on for. So he's worth being paid. You brought him on because he's actually a quality asset. Otherwise, you wouldn't have him. Present him that way.
Okay.
I contracted my colleague to do this work for $10,000 is a lot stronger than my friend volunteered for free, and I decided I should pay him.
Yes.
And kind of piggybacking off of what Danny said there, the best pitches in terms of the whole gamut, pitch and Q&A, are the ones where a founder will plant the seeds of questioning in your mind. And then when you get to the end, they know what seeds they planted,
Mhm.
and they're able to answer every single question articulately with data. It just, so that flow is a huge thing. Um, I think something that is shared with your presentation, and the last one is slow down.
Mhm.
Uh, your nervousness came out quite a bit, but slow down, speak slowly, and getting a little bit more granular here in your market analysis. Again, I love the numbers. I love seeing the data. Uh, I would love to see a TAM SAM SOM analysis. Do you know what that
Mhm.
is?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So what's
Explain
the
it for everyone.
yeah? So total addressable market is let's say I'm making coffee and I'm trying to sell you coffee.
Mm-hmm.
My total addressable market is all of the coffee that is in the world and every transaction that's dealt with coffee. My service service available market would be cups of coffee because I'm selling cups of coffee. Okay, so that takes it down from 9 billion down to 5 billion. Now my service obtainable market is the smallest share of that, and that's what I would be able to expect to capture within 5 years time. And having a good understanding of that is really helping me to understand the trajectory of your business and what you can capture. um, I think the biggest thing, I got a little googly eyed, 40% equity.
Mhm.
So my first question before diving into it is this an RSA type agreement, like a revenue share agreement, or is this a purely handoff of equity?
It's gonna be handoff of equity is what I it's gonna come straight from me, and the reason why it was that 40% straight off is
Uh-huh.
because if we did have to take inventory, that would have to dilute the shares quite a bit, and I wanted that number for an angel to be up there to be higher.
So rule of thumb, I would say 15 to 20%
Mhm.
um, is what you typically give up in a round. The problem with giving up that much equity is that it's going to dilute you, right? So
Mhm.
when I'm an investor, I get preferred shares, you get common.
Mhm.
Any preferred you issue is going to dilute you. And the problem with that is that if this company takes off, you're not going to have the motivation to grow it any bigger because your share of the company is
Mhm.
much smaller. So all equity is your lifeblood. Defend it and give it up very carefully.
Completely agree
So
with that.
I do have one question
Sure.
about that.
Mm-hmm.
Most angels that I talk to take significantly higher amounts of equity, especially for pre-revenue. So how does that play in?
The angels that you're dealing with are getting great deals on paper, but they might fizzle out later on.
Okay.
But it's I'm maybe a capital stack above in terms of my understanding, so I'm not might not be privy to that, but um, maybe it's something that's oriented towards manufacturing type companies.
Okay.
I've never seen that, so
Okay.
Here's the thing. The greedy thing for an investor is to think they want to take as much as they can get. But the problem is if they demotivate you, they may there's the saying, be careful what you ask for, you might get it.
Mhm.
Let's say I could squeeze you and say, look, you need to give me 80% because frankly, you need money right now, but you'll still make plenty because your idea is great. And so blah, blah, blah. And so you decide to give it to me. Well, then the problem is later like, you're not into it anymore. And so sure, I've got 80% in someone who's not going to follow through.
Mhm.
But stepping back, I would say we've had two pitches that wanted relatively little money, which is totally fine. This was a pitch show to teach on pitching, and Mitch, you did a great pitch. I think to complement, you had the very best, you had the most thought on the financial model and how people would make money and what things would sell for. So what I'd almost like to do is I'd love to go stitch together, like for everybody who watched the whole show or who goes back and does it, I'd like to stitch together Duke of Thoughts, data, like research and graphics on the map, Ryan's calm, professional presentation, confident speak, Maximus, I'd like to take from you your enthusiasm and energy and passion around it, and Mitch, your financial data, and also Maximus, you and Mitch both having the formulated presentations that kind of follow the recipe. And if I could stitch those together, so everyone hit different great elements. And if you're watching the show and learning how to do this, you're set because you've seen both lots of pitfalls, but also lots of great elements. And so Franken products. So we're going to anchor our sea taxis at robotic coffee stands where we work on our social media.
Ethan,
Yeah.
I'd almost like to see the four of them go off and build a pitch together.
They can help each other.
Exactly.
Well, I think if we were to do this show again soon, we'd talk about mentors and how we could do a different show with mentors or something.
If I may,
Yeah,
I just
ahead.
want to say, Mitch,
Mm-hmm.
it was so great to see the unit economics extrapolated in your
Totally.
pitch. It was great.
Totally.
It gives your audience a granular vision into your business model. It's one thing to put a couple bullet points and say this is going to happen. This is, but seeing tables with variable pricing, wonderful. Just that was great to see.
Yeah, thank you. And to address the concern of nervousness, yeah, absolutely. I've learned a long time ago. I'm pretty extroverted, hate being the face of anything. So that is something that I think I've just become comfortable with. If I had to step aside and let someone else like take over and just keep the small percentage, I would definitely.
Yep. So, look, another fantastic presentation. Thank you. And by way of all the people I just mentioned, if they're still here, Duke, Maximus, and Doug, you all came on, shared this for everyone. Comments in chat on how much people are learning. There's a comment that's, I see. Yeah, no one here totally bombed their pitch. I want to say there's a comment about they've seen poor pitches. Oh my God, I've seen train wrecks that just you're
Feel bad for them.
yeah, no, it's and this is actually advice for everyone that will help you. I've talked about public speaking in other forums. Part of pitching is a specialized type of public speaking. Realize that your potential investors, they may or may not want to invest, but they want to see you succeed in giving a good pitch because it's so painful to cringe through.
And if you can't sell your business, you can't sell to a customer.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really what you look for in a pitch. You can't sell a manufacturing contract. You can't sell a affiliate marketing contract. Anything. So it's a good barometer for that.
Yep. Your investors are not experts often in your field. They may have some knowledge. They're experts in people and in leaders, and they're betting on the team. And so for better or for worse, being able to sell yourself as a team is really important. Mitch, any final questions you have for us? Otherwise, we'll wrap up after a killer night.
No, just thank you guys for doing this. I know a lot of people are really excited about it, and the criticism is extremely valid, and I really appreciate it. So Great job, and thanks for having me on.
Of course. Well, just remember the compliments are valid as well. You did a lot of things, including the
Yeah.
business model, really well. Um, I would say I kind of got distracted. For those looking for small amounts of money, the traditional way to do that is honestly credit cards, mom and dad, friends and family. Go get $5,000 from each of a bunch of people. Just so um,
Mm.
a lot of the followers of this show are not at a stage in their career where they can reach into their own hip pockets and come up with 60 grand. But I don't know the stats, but if you looked at U.S. or European demographics, the number of people who could come up with $60,000 out of home equity or whatever is enormous, and it's not just quote unquote rich people. Somebody's saying do it off GME. Um, there's a famous story, I guess it may be apocryphal, of the FedEx founder was out of money, and he took whatever he had left and went down to Vegas and put it on black and doubled up and made payroll. Whether or not that's true, plenty of businesses have squeaked by on all kinds of small money funding. So that's just advice for everybody. Get your initial money somehow that way, because the further along you can go, somebody asked you, I think it may have been Danny, do you have a prototype? Your value when you go for funding becomes so much higher each stage you are. If you have a design, that's worth one thing. If you have a good deck and nothing, that's worth a little bit. If you have a design, that's worth a little more. If you have a prototype, it's worth a little more. If you have a prototype that you've sold to 100 customers and have feedback, that's worth a little more. And you just on and on and on. And the farther you go, the better off you are. So
Also, one other comment on that, Ethan, is one of the things I found is if your family and friends won't support you, why should I? Right? If you can't pitch your mom and dad to back you on something, that could either be you have a really bad relationship with your mom and dad, which is a different problem, right? But if your family isn't willing to back you because you're family, why should I, as an outside investor who has no interest, good or bad, in seeing you succeed? Why should I? But if you've got that funding from your parents, if you've maxed out your credit cards, you're invested in it, and that energy, that passion has value, even if it's not quantifiable.
we're going a little deep here, but Peter, I'll ask you to comment on this. I agree with a lot of what Danny said. For an institutional investor like you represent, that creates a messy cap table, because you've got all these literally mom and pop people that have tiny little amounts of money in. But it's got all these other benefits. What's your as an institutional, what do you make of bootstrapped businesses with friends and family?
So if they raise a friends and family through a safe or some agreement for common shares, it's not that tricky. If it's pretty streamlined in terms of a very black and white safe, a very black and white convertible note, that's fine. Where it gets tricky is if there are lawyers, specifically corporate security lawyers, within your friends and family, and they start adding liquidation preferences and these other rights that are involved in these types of financings. That can create a lot of problems for us down the road, right? So let's say the company's going to sell in an exit through M&A. There's certain rights within these convertible notes that can say everyone has to sign off on it, including the family and friends tranche of equity that owns 0.05% of the company now, and they don't want to sell. So there's a lot of corporate governance as well as just financial management that can arise. Have I seen that once or twice? Does it come up often? Not at all.
So your point is friends and family done well is neutral to an asset. Friends and family done poorly, it can disqualify investment or make it a mess.
Correct.
Yeah.
A messy cap table just it happens at the later stage of diligence, but when you come across a messy cap table, it can turn a great deal sour pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was more thinking in terms of like the 10, 20, 50, $60,000 ask where it's it's too small really to go to a Peter. How,
Yeah.
and you don't want to go through the marketing hassle of Kickstarter and what you see with everybody going through we have to add a new, round of
Hmm.
swag, and you
Hmm.
spend more time filling swag than you do product. I mean, I'm still waiting on a Kickstarter from 4 years ago because of that, right?
Yeah,
Um,
same. So in that example, when you're not looking for additional fundraising, I'd say, or even if you are to set yourself up very well, is you just issue common shares and then you protect it with a 409A safe harbor. And then you have a non-messy cap table. You still have vested interest from your friends and family investors, but when it comes to it, like if you do need to raise an institutional round, it's still clean.
got it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've gotten deep into sort of finance, but it is really interesting. We could probably do a whole show on how to kickstart ideas. And you can get someone in. There are multiple people, including actually Mitch, who was just pitching. There are multiple people in our chat and in our Discord who can explain the different options. I was just part of a startup a couple of years ago where I was in the friends and family, and it was done, as Peter said, because that guy has done multiple exits and knew what he was doing, as convertible debt. And so, layman's terms, what that means is I loaned money to this company that I signed a deal that said I'd either get paid back, or if they were funded, and of course I was never going to get paid back. The money was going to get spent and I was going to get bupkis if it didn't work out. But when it got funded, my money would convert into shares of the first round at a slightly preferential rate because I went in early. And that's super clean. And so 6 or 10 people went together. They did the seed or angel round as convertible debt. Eventually, an institution like the one Peter represents came in. They set the valuation, and we all converted into the valuation with a slight bonus for having been early. And that was that. And now the table is clean. There's no different classes of shares. There's no different classes of owners, and the company's off to the races. But of course, that was a guy who had done 2 company exits, so he knew exactly how to set it up. That said, that is knowable knowledge. So the other thing I want to address, a lot of people in chat, and we'll end on this, a lot of people in chat are saying, hey, man, be careful asking family. That's true, right? If you lose Aunt Ethel's retirement money or whatever, if your family, after the money is gone and your business idea has failed, feels that you misled them on the risk, then that will bite you, right? So that said, most of you, if you've been following my other advice about network and build a network, you have enough people in your network that there's somebody who understands investing and risk. And I always tell people, and we made this decision when I invested in my friend's company, I would recommend it to anyone. You have to put that money in assuming you'll never see it again. You hope, but you can't. You've got to assume, I have no idea if I'll get it back or when, because that's investing. What's the normal time to an exit, Peter, from say your company, from when you go in to when you see a return if you do?
Rule of thumb, I'd say, is 10 to 12
years.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. So you can't be putting in your uncle or your best friend's dad or whoever who has the money. They've got to understand they may get lots of money back 5 or 8 or 10 years from now. but it can't be money they need to spend on anything. Now, yeah, for this particular idea, because the gentleman was Mitch was gonna manufacture it, you're either gonna succeed or not in 2 years, maybe. But for most things that require building stuff, it's years and years and years to an exit. So, All right. Well, Danny, Peter, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you want to add, say, share, wrap up with?
This is fun. Keep it up.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Good.
Great time. And thank you to everyone that pitched. That was awesome. And kudos to you guys for coming on here and taking a risk and being very public about, your weaknesses. We all have weaknesses, and this was, you got your rep in tonight, and you're better after tonight. So good on you guys.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I think just as an advertisement, those of you who want to join the Discord, and we'll talk about a future show, I think if I did this again, I would look at how to figure out someone who could also coach a little bit and do Dancing with the Stars teams, as it were. And I think, there's multiple. So I think that would be fun. And maybe we'll just make the little... the pitch perfect incubator in that sense. So someone, though, along the way, I think it might have been Taryn Fear, it might have been somebody else who dropped in, said this is like the teaching version of Shark Tank. And whoever said that nailed exactly what I had in mind when I came up with this, which is, what if you could have the pitch show but that helped people? And so that's what I'm after. And I think we hit it because someone completely unprompted, I guess it was the malice conspiracy here,